And this is something that you should avoid because of the oils and the acids in your hands. It will etch into and cause the metal to start to rust. So just be aware of that. I view these weapons as tools, and I don't mind them personally getting touched, but some people are very particular about that. But you just kind of wipe them off when you're done, and we can talk about blade care later. But you can put like a light oil mixed with a wax, and then you don't have to worry about rust, right? Okay. How about we do this? And you're going to record, right? How about we move over there where we have a little bit more shade? You want to bring? And then let's, unless you guys want to do drafts.
I'm down with either.
So if we're gonna do footwork.
Well, we're gonna do handwork. Review how we're gonna hold the blade.
Okay, whichever is good for you.
Okay, and then we'll do some footwork,
and
then we'll see about lunging. I think maybe.
I like the shade.
Yeah.
I don't mind.
Shade is my friend.
And then this way you guys aren't looking into the sun, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so. Okay, now different styles of grips, different styles of guards, right? Coquilles. Okay. When you normally get a starter set, you get a basic foil like that one that Jose has. Okay. And it's round. So the only thing that you would need to upgrade eventually to do classical fencing is to get a different coquille, and these are hard to find. There are only a couple people that kind of produce them for sale. Really only know of one, I mean I've made them, and that's what a lot of people do. But the thing is, this becomes a tool in classical fencing because you use the edges, you use the vertices, you use the corners in moves against your opponent. Okay.
No, you can be cornered at them, right?
Right. Gotcha. So this one's called a Martingale, named for a fencing master, a French fencing master. This is just known as a shell-shaped coquille, right? And the coquille is French for shell.
Okay.
Right? And so you can capture your opponent's blade in these vertices right here. The trouble with this is that it's very much a round coquille, and so although you can lock your opponent's blade in it, it just slides right off. So you don't have anywhere near as much manipulation on the round coquille. So this is fine to start with. But once you get up into like intermediate fencing, in classical fencing, you want a different kind of coquille.
Gotcha.
Right? And literally it can be cut and shaped out of mild steel. So it's not a big deal, but be thinking about that because it might mean an extra $30 down the road. Okay?
Is it just for preference, or is there any like tactical advantage on having
tactical advantages for sure, right?
Okay.
So they're known as like actions on the blade. So if I have the opportunity, I might perform an action on your blade and I seize control of your blade. And that's done by locking your blade against mine, which is possible, but much harder with that. So this is what has evolved in modern sport fencing, because in modern sport fencing, they don't do actions on the blade. It's all about speed. Yeah. It's all about speed. Okay. All right. Now, let me just show you, and then maybe we will trade. These grips, there are different styles of grips here. Yeah, probably light and small, right?
So this is going up or down?
Yeah, so this one is going up, and yeah, so you know what, technically I grabbed you. These are ambidextrous in nature, however, this one is canted a little bit for a left-handed person, right? So I'm going to trade you here in a moment. But I just want to show you, this is a style of grip that comes from more recently in classical fencing, and it's got this swell at the bottom. So remember, what we do is we put our ring finger and our pinky there, and we hold it very lightly, right? And so what you're going to do is you're going to pinch with your thumb and your forefinger about an inch down away behind the coquille, and you're going to hold it nice and loosely there so that it rotates, right? It actually acts like a fulcrum. And then the way in which you manipulate it is you curl around your ring finger and your pinky finger on that swell. Yes, yeah, same basic idea. And then there's this very common phrase that gets repeated a lot, especially in classical fencing. You want to hold this nice and lightly, like a bird, right? You know this? Yes. You want to hold it firmly enough so it doesn't fly away, but you don't want to clench it. Yeah. Because if you clench it, you don't have control, you don't have sensing of, ease of sensing where your opponent is at, and you're very slow to letting that kind of rotate, fall up and down between, you know, your index finger and your thumb being a fulcrum, and then you just lightly put your manipulator fingers, as they're called, back here on the swell. Okay, now if you want, and you guys don't need to do it, but both of those are mine that I use and made. The leather strap is what's known as a martingale. There are different kinds of martingales in fencing, but this is Paso Martingale, and what you do is you just put your first two fingers inside of that. So you go right there, right there. Yeah, so if you want to, you don't have to, but you put your first two fingers in there. And that way, if I go to disarm you, I'm gonna you know, you don't lose your sword altogether. Okay? Not necessary. Some people don't like them. Yeah, a martingale. Now Italians fence with a different type of martingale. It's a different style of fencing, but they literally lock this grip down to their wrist, and they have a small leather belt usually, and today they're also Velcro, and you literally lock it to your wrist. So that's also known as a martingale. Okay. So just be aware. But look, the biggest thing that you can do is to get started off on the right foot with a very nice light grip. It's going to be really easy to think, oh, my blade's going to get hit and I don't want to drop it.
Yeah.
But if you're holding it lightly enough, I know this sounds counterintuitive, you should be occasionally dropping your blade.
Okay.
Okay? And there's no shame in that, anything at all. Okay? But if, like, okay, do me a favor, pull your fingers out of that martingale for a second.
Okay.
And just hold it. And if I cause you to drop your blade, it's known as a disarm, right? Oh, okay, so hold nice and light, right? Right? There we go, right?
Yeah.
Now wait, hold on. You leave it. So this is the etiquette thing in classical fencing, because remember, classical fencing was also really a practice of the upper class. And once swords became available to everyone, the upper class still wanted to distinguish them from the lowly underclass by their behavior.
Yeah.
So there's this expectation that everybody's super polite and very gentlemanly in fencing. If you disarm someone, one, you're a jerk if you do it intentionally.
Yeah.
Two, if you do it accidentally, if you're the person that did it, you go and you pick up the weapon, and then you apologize and you hand it to the person. Yeah. So it's just a cultural thing. It's just how it is, and that's what's considered polite.
That's cool.
Now, also, it's not considered good form if you land a touch or you stab someone after their weapon has hit the ground. So some people will try to disarm an individual and then also land a touch against their torso before it hits the ground.
That's dirty.
Yeah, that's dirty, but it's considered legit, particularly like if you're in a duel. And if you're in a duel and it hits the ground and then you stab someone, it's considered very cowardly.
Because it was also a street fighting weapon.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, probably street fights that probably go, but
Right.
This is the champ.
Yeah. So, and then next time I'll bring my small sword. I've got a Georgian era small sword. It's cast from an original from England, and it's a short. If that's a little bit shorter than that, and that was the weapon of the upper class, and they would use it to defend their honor. Okay, so remember a nice light grip. Okay, all right. Now let's do the basic stance. So there's no reason why we need to line up, but. Do you have first position in your practices with HEMA?
No, we have like a super general stuff and we work from that.
Okay. All right. Well, this is very general too. So what you're going to do is you're going to stand with your heels at a 90-degree angle. And typically, like if and I'm sorry to have my back to the camera here, but just for a moment, if I was going to oppose Jose, our toes would line up. Okay? All right. Now, as it turns out, this is also first position in ballet. Yeah, because fencing, was an upper class art, and a cultured gentleman knew horsemanship, dance, and fencing, right? And so fencing instructors often did those three subjects as content that they would teach. Okay, and I'm sorry to have you guys in the sun. That was not the plan. So if you want to come forward, okay,
sure.
Whatever you're comfortable with. Okay, so you are going to first position, put those heels together with your lead foot in front of the heel of your rear foot. So lefties would be exactly the opposite, right? Okay, so this is first position. Now, you start off being nice and relaxed. Okay, and this is the hard part. It's easy to get amped up and get adrenalized, but really. You will be a much better fencer if you don't worry about receiving the touch or landing the touch. You just think about focusing on your form, be nice and relaxed. First position also has your hands with palm up and your point of your foil just a few inches above above the ground. That's first position. Okay? Now, when we assume the on guard position, you step out, and you step out, do you remember how far?
Just under your shoulders.
Yeah, so typically you're going to go about 1 to 1.5 of your foot width between your heels, and you maintain that same 90-degree orientation.
So from foot forward?
Yep, front foot forward, about 1.5 of your foot lengths. Okay, now you should be very comfortable as far as the distribution of your weight, and you're roughly shoulder length apart. Okay, now this is where you got to build up some muscle tone. To come on guard, you also are going to bend your knees slightly. Okay, yeah, actually, and maybe even a little bit more. So these are loaded springs in classical fencing. I assume it's the same in HEMA, right, with most sword practices. So what you have to work at is building up muscle tone and being comfortable like this. When you bend your knees, you want to make sure that your spine is still nice and vertical. And you might think about, again, a thing out of ballet. You've got like the feeling of a string coming right up your spine, out the crown of your skull. So your head is nice and vertical and straight. Okay? Now, what not to do, you remember what not to do?
No.
Okay, so what not to do is have that knee kind of bend in. Yeah, right? So if your knees bend in, and that, to begin with, it's very normal. That's what we want to do, because unless we have practiced this and become very limber, or we do other kind of physical activities, our hamstrings are pretty tight. So you have to really focus for the first, say, 6 weeks or so in really stretching and limbering that out. And the phrase is knee over foot. Knee over foot, right?
So your knees go in your toes. You cannot
Right.
see your toes, basically.
Yeah, well, I mean, to the
Just a
degree
little
that you bend, but yes. What the big thing is that you want to avoid having your knee off to the side, because you'll blow out your ACL. Don't do that. Either way. Now you can, when you come on guard and you're bent down like this, it's totally okay to have an angle of your feet to be wider than or more obtuse than 90 degrees. And what I will often do is have my rear foot even turn further out. That's considered totally acceptable. What you don't want to do is have your knee like this, right, and your toe pointed forward, and your knee not over your foot. So knee over foot, okay? All right, so come back to first position, right? Okay, and remember, nice and vertical. And then just go ahead and step forward with that lead foot and just find what seems to be a comfortable distance for you, and then bend those knees. Okay, so we're almost there. That's looking perfect. That looks great. Yeah, no problem there at all. Okay, now the upper body does something else, and I'm going to keep talking while with your knees bent, because I'm going to try to challenge you with muscle tone here. So if you need to stand up, feel free to stand up, because you might get fatigued. Now remember the grip that we talked about with the foil, right?
Someone with a water bottle.
Oh yeah. Is that Aiden?
Yep.
Yo,
Hey Aiden, how you doing, bud?
pretty swell. How are you?
Excellent, great to see you.
I'm a moron. I forgot where I was going.
Oh, that's all right, man. I'm glad you could show up. Come on in. Let me get you a foil.
How you doing?
My friend
doing
Felix
well. How about you,
from Puerto
sir?
Rico.
Not
He's telling me that historical
Excellent. You didn't bring
Spanish
your
saber.
stuff, right?
I did. Okay.
Oh, you did? Okay, good.
Learned a lot more footwork with this Spanish.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Let me
Oh my
introduce you here.
God.
I don't
Yeah,
think
I've
you've
heard the
met either of
Spanish
these
stuff.
guys.
It's a
Probably
lot
not.
more like
Yeah.
a little dance between like.
Come on over in the shade, guys.
Sure.
Hey, this is Aiden.
What's going on?
Aiden, I'm
this
David.
is David.
Good to meet you.
David.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Jose.
Hi, Jose. How you doing?
So Aiden has.
You're the guy I met.
We have met?
We met on that side.
We did?
I think so. Were
Oh.
you practicing with another friend of yours
I don't think
at
so.
some point?
Yeah.
He looks,
Maybe.
Maybe. Well, how long ago was this?
it was like a year and a half ago.
I don't think
It's
so.
like by the time of COVID.
I think
Okay.
I stopped fencing a little before that, I think.
Yeah.
So maybe somebody else with curly hair.
Maybe. So Aiden has a little bit of a background in fencing. He,
A little bit, yeah.
what, a couple, 2 or 3 years?
Well, I had fenced since high school, so probably more like 5 or
Okay.
6. But yeah,
And then you worked with Evangelista's son
Yeah,
for a little while,
yeah.
right? And then he
Justin.
left.
Yeah.
Justin. Okay. All right. So hey, there's a foil for you.
Oh, thanks.
We just had conversation about starter
This is
kits.
nice. Yeah.
Oh yeah, just the basic stuff. Foil. And we've talked about the right grip.
Yeah.
I hope you're okay. Jose's doing some recording. Are
That's
you all right
chill.
with that?
That's fine.
Uh,
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were just,
way.
refreshing the idea of what it is to be on guard.
Oh,